Yes, we're live. Welcome to the Podcasters Lounge. My name is Chris Curran. I run Podcast Engineering School, and Ken Sweeney should be here in a minute. We're going to have a few other people come on. So we're here, but the Podcasters Lounge is just an informal sort of a hangout on Fridays, and we just kind of hang out and talk podcasting things and life things and, stuff like that. So last week, we had a really great stream with Ken Sweeney and Corey Crabb, and we talked about a bunch of really cool things. We have a couple news items to discuss. But we'll wait until Ken shows up. And I just have to make sure I'm streaming here. Yeah, so if you're watching the replay, definitely try to catch us live. All right, so we are streaming. You can definitely hear me. If you're in the chat, definitely put in the chat the name of your show and what it's about. This is all about podcasting. And, of course, that covers everything in podcasting. That covers the traditional, correct podcasts and also the new, someone puts up a few videos and calls it a podcasts. We accept them all. We love you all. Sound like a politician, but more cringy. Although politicians are pretty cringy. So let's talk politics. I'm just kidding. We're not talking politics. Oh, and here's Ken. Ken, my brother.
How are you?
Good. Good to see you. Okay? We're already live. So everybody, this is Ken Sweeney. You can just quickly introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah, great. My name's Ken, as I said. I'm from Dublin in Ireland, and I am the host and producer of the Comfortable Spot podcast, which is a one-on-one series of conversations. Am I late? Sorry, I had trouble logging in.
That's okay. No, my internet was literally until 3 minutes before the stream, my internet was not working. And I was like, okay, here we go. We're going to have to cancel. Yeah, this is your show here. I'm showing it on the screen.
Thank you.
Links will be below and everything like that. So,
super. Yep. New series, new episode starting on Monday this week. So, it's been a busy few months collecting all those interviews, but we have the majority of them now. So, ready to
nice. Go. So I don't think I'm hearing your mic. I think I'm hearing your computer mic again.
Okay. Seems strange. I have no problems logging in with other StreamYards. StreamYard mustn't like me. Okay, you keep talking. Give me 2 seconds and I'll
check it out. But also check in StreamYard first, because sometimes you just have to pick the right.
Yeah, I can't seem to link up. It doesn't recognize the road. I don't know why it's not doing that. So just give me 2 seconds and I'll dig out the.
Take your time. So while Ken gets his stuff going there, we can. I wanted to share one thing. Well, you know what? I'm going to share that after this because we're going to welcome a legend in the podcasting space, and it's a man I'm proud to call my friend, Chris Krimitsos, everybody. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Ken. Ken, you don't have to applaud. It's okay.
Welcome. Oh, he dropped off. All right, he's connecting his mic and stuff. So how you doing, Chris? Good to see you, man.
Good that he's good.
Yeah, it's been a while, and you just had another huge Podfest global event, and I know you've been breaking Guinness World Records forever. Are you still doing that?
No, not on this one, but we set 2 Guinness World Records. That was enough for us. We're just happy to bring thousands of people together, so that's what matters. And it was great seeing people all over the globe. We'd be in a chat, and someone would be speaking. We're like, tell us where you're at. And it's like Berlin, Zimbabwe, Indonesia, Malaysia, and then, all the people in Ontario and Mexico and Venezuela. It was everywhere. It was pretty amazing.
That's great. And so if you're watching the lounge right now or the replay, you have to understand the podcasting space is one of the most supportive spaces I've ever been a part of. And your Podfest that you have every year, the physical Podfest in Orlando, is awesome. But are you still surprised, Chris, that people, it's almost like new podcasters, they're almost surprised and shocked at how supportive this whole industry is, right?
I literally have emails that cannot open because they're like as long as, and I want to take the time to read them, of people thanking me of how warm and welcoming everybody. So they were first timers, and yes, they were so overwhelmed and with gratitude that people were so kind to them and so sharing of information. So I think it, especially Podfest, because we've leaned into that from the very inception. So that's you were at one of the first ever Podfest. So it's built over time. So it's amazing where we're at now.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me over time that I don't know, like I don't know. I know life is tough and life is, it's hard to make a living and everybody's, competing with each other. But somehow when we get on the topic of podcasting, especially at Podfest, it's like we're all just brothers and sisters, and we're all like we don't take away from each other to rise up. Like we help each other rise up, right?
Oh yeah. There's no competition in Podfest. It literally, what was cool to see this year, Chris? So a lot of people have been with us now for so long that the fruits of their labor are paying off. So when they're teaching, they're like, hey, I started this with an idea. Now it's, I got 3 people working with me or a team. And then they're like, and I brought in this much revenue. And they're like, listen, you'll get there. And they would be like, here's my deck, copy it, do like their pitch deck. They were giving everything, and people were like, is this normal? It's like, well, they're part of our they want to pay it forward because that's how they were treated when they came into it. So it's cool to see that those fruits, blossom and bloom, and they're helping the next generation of creators coming up.
I want to ask you about money, because money sometimes comes into podcasting. I mean, a lot of people do podcast and they just, it's a labor of love, and they do it and they just love it. Other people want to make money. Like what have you seen over the years in terms of people who just want to make money? Like, because it's not easy, right?
No, like podcasting of all the mediums, and I'm including YouTube in there, is the hardest to make money because of the relationship a podcaster has with their audience is so intimate and so pure. Majority of people listen to podcasts long form, meaning it's not like YouTube where you click on something, you might then click on another video. By the time an hour passes, you've clicked on 50 videos. If a listener clicks on that podcast, more than likely they're going to finish it. So that audience is very special and it's very pure. Now, that being said, that audience, you get paid a higher CPM than all the other mediums. Podcasting has one of the highest CPMs, meaning money that you get paid because of that relationship. So is it difficult? Yes. Is it rewarding? Absolutely. And if you have a small niche audience, there's always small niche sponsors that could come your way. And some of our niche podcasters make more money than some of the largest podcasters because of, the industry that they're in. So but we have seen more money come into the space than we ever have the last couple of years.
Oh, that's great. And there was let's bring Ken back. Ken.
Up, Ken?
I think you muted yourself, Ken. Hold on. Can I unmute you? Yeah, you're muted. You're in StreamYard. You're muted, Ken. Yeah. Yeah. So I know hey Chris, over the COVID, there was a boom in podcasting, right? And now it's coming down a little after that.
Yeah, basically, and we saw this at Pod Global. We had Edison go over the stats. There was not huge, but there was a dip. I think it was 2020. What year are we in? 20. I think
23 right now.
Yeah, I think 21 was a dip. We came back up a little bit on 22, and now we're back on the growth. So there was one year there was a dip only because during the 2020, everybody got into podcasting because they couldn't do a lot of things, and podcasting was one of the areas they had an idea and they wanted to go into.
Right. Yeah, Ken, you there now?
Get me now, yeah?
Oh, yeah. You can crank up your level a bit too, yeah.
Thank God for Rode. There we go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can boost your level a bit. And Ken, have you ever been over to the U.S. and attended a Podfest?
No, and it doesn't seem to be a big thing here in Ireland or in the UK. I mean, there is a couple of we have these podcast awards over here, but they're a bit of a rip-off. You have to pay 150 quid to enter, and it's usually run by PR companies that are just looking to make a few bob on the side, and they think, hand out a few trophies every year, call it the podcast awards. But most of the independent podcasters see right through it because usually it's journalists and media platforms that are the big winners there. You know, you'll have people from the productions like from the BBC and so on entering alongside Joe Soaps like you and me. You know, you're not going to be able to compete with that. So doesn't seem to be a kind of a movement for seminars or get-togethers. I'm actually been asked myself, because I would have hosted a few seminars and stuff like that in Brussels, maybe as part of the work I did with the European Union. But no, there hasn't been anything like that. As I said, there probably needs to be, because I think podcasting in Ireland it's a cottage thing. It's still very small. There's not many people doing it. Most of the people that are doing it are professionals who have it on the side. You know, it's a bit of a few bob for them to earn through sponsorships or advertisements. They're journalists who probably aren't earning as much money as they were 10 years ago, because media has changed and journalism has changed so much in terms of, you know, how much money is in the business and how much people are being paid when they're not working. So, you know, right. It's become that kind of thing. So in terms of the independent podcasting and seeing what you guys are doing, I don't see it happening, but I think it's only a matter of time before somebody puts together, you know, a big get together in Brussels or Berlin, somewhere nice and central, you know.
I was just going to say, maybe we should plan on Podfest Dublin. Oh yeah, baby. Then we can all get the Irish food and the, you know, everything Ireland offers. Ken.
Yeah, the big problem with Ireland at the moment is that you can't even throw a decent get together because there isn't enough accommodation. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? It is. Yeah, it's a big problem. Yeah, so like, I mean, we used to have the Paddy something, I can't think his name. We used to have the Tech Feast over here in Ireland. It started there and it moved to Lisbon because there wasn't enough hotel rooms, and also people were being charged a disproportionate amount of money to stay in one night in a hotel. You know, €2,000 to stay in a hotel for 2 or 3 nights. Yeah, Dublin's not very attractive. I would probably say if you're going to do it, it would probably be somewhere like Berlin. You know, it's a very trendy city, Berlin. It's got a good demographic. It's very easy to get to, you know, whether you're coming in from Japan or whether you're coming in from Los Angeles. So, you know, if you're going to throw it, my top 3 would be Berlin, Rome, or Madrid, probably. Madrid's a beautiful city. It's nice and small, very economical, good, cheap quality stuff. So, yeah. But as I said, I think it's only a matter of time. Somebody's going to do it. That won't be me, but I'll be there.
Yeah. So, Chris, what is up next for Podfest this year? What's on the calendar?
We're heading to UK. We're going to do a meetup in the UK for the UK show, more of a meetup for Podfest creators, and then we're going to go on a 30-city tour. So we'll be going to we're going to announce it yet, but we're going to hit a lot of cities, North America, and then we were looking at doing something in Asia. So we're looking at kind of like what Ken was saying. Thank you, Ken. Those were really good tips. That actually you helped me a lot just with what you just said. So we're looking at expanding the brand and doing more meetups, like where we don't make money, but we're trying not to lose money. So just so we could bring everybody together. And that's great.
I'll just make a point there. Actually, I think meetups are a better idea, especially when you're dealing with European cities, because what really should be done is that if you wanted to get into the city without having to make the trouble of going there, is probably set up a Facebook page. So you can call, you know, whatever it be, London, Brussels, and then gather between maybe 300 or 400 people who are podcasters or just interested in podcasting. Then when you boil your demographic down for your meet, you might get 50 or 60 people. And that's pretty good, actually. So that would be my advice, is to set up either, you know, a Telegram page or Telegram group or maybe a Facebook group. Facebook is still kind of works with podcasters because the podcasting demographic here in Europe is fairly high in terms of age. Not many young people are doing podcasting. They're all on TikTok or whatever doing, you know, they're very fast paced. So people over 30 are actually more interested in podcasting. And the thing is, they'll do it properly. They have the equipment and all that kind of thing. So Facebook still works that way for them. You know, so if my advice, Chris, is probably to look around, set up a page, you know, dedicated to an area or a region in Europe, and then take it from there. You'll get the demographic when you throw out the questions. Would you be interested in having a meetup? You know, you'll get the people coming back to you and saying yes or no. And then you'll be able to gather.
Great. Yeah, that's great information. That's great. That's great. Listen, this is amazing. And then early next year, sometime in January, we'll be celebrating our 10-year in-person anniversary. So we have been holding Podfest, and that I think that's part of why we were able to succeed. We started so long ago that we were able to build momentum before a lot of different meetups popped up, and our sponsors trust us, and we have these amazing relationships. So next year in January, we'll be announcing soon. We'll be celebrating our 10-year in-person anniversary.
Chris, when are you going to? Sorry, Chris. Chris, when are you going to London?
End of May for the UK, the London show, and then I'll be there for about 6 days.
So you'll be in London town?
Yes.
Give me a shout with the details and see if I can make it. If you don't mind, I can pop over.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
well, it's a big show, right? It's a huge show, right?
Supposedly, yeah. That's what the UK. That's what they're saying. I've never been. There was one yet last year, but I want to do it since I'm here. I want to do a meetup at a pub or somewhere and tell people, hey, Podfest meetup over here. Let's all have a good time and meet up. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Well, you definitely plenty of pubs in Ireland if you want to have one meetup over there.
And Mark Asquith, the Captivate, and Kieran, they're just amazing guys. So I'm going to be visiting them too. So part of it is when they come to the US, I'll take them out. We'll go do some cool stuff. So I get to see them for a day or two. So it's kind of not just the UK show. It's really visiting some friends that we've developed thanks to the world of podcasting.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and you've been traveling around the U.S. I mean, you and I met in Denver. What was it, last December? I showed up to a local meetup, and all of a sudden you walked in, and I was like, "Whoa, that's cool." I mean, there's no better way to get to know the people and the places and to meet people and develop relationships than doing that, right?
We did what Ken just said for Europe, right? He gave me some inside info on how to do it, but we did that in the U.S. We kind of already knew all the people. So that made it easier. So we kind of knew who to tap on the shoulder and say, would you like to be part of this on the ground floor? And we went Jacksonville, Tampa, Space Coast of Florida. Then we went out to Texas, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Houston, Denver, Orange County, California. We did New York City, Times Square. That was fun. Toronto was huge. I could go on and on. This year, we've already done Nashville and Providence, Rhode Island, and we're doing Detroit next. So I'm not at all of them. People in the community could set them up and we'll promote them. Eventbrite's one of our biggest drivers, and then any local leaders in the city. But they're a lot of fun. And I was surprised how strong our brand is. I do love my brand, and I'm biased, but it's different to go on the street in a different city and 30, 40 people show up. We were happy if 5 to 6 people showed up, and that's the case. We got a lot more than that. So that was pretty.
We had this conversation last week, didn't we, Chris? Where we were talking about how people have contacted me, and after 7 or 8, the 10 podcast episode mark, you lose them. This is the big mark, isn't it? It's like the point of no return for independent podcasters. And I was getting emails from people who were looking for advice. I don't know why they were asking me, but anyway, they were asking me for advice, and they were saying to me, "Oh, I'm up to episode 6." And I've only got like 150 people on average. And I say to them, what are you talking about? That's really great. Imagine 150 people in a room. And it's just what you were saying there, Chris. 150 people turning up for an event is a lot of people. So, if you take it into account on your podcast, it should give you a fair bit of encouragement, because it is hard to get people out, isn't it?
Listen, I'm happy. And when I say this, it's a literal thing. I'm happy 5-6 people show up. Now, when 30 to 50 people in person show up, that's phenomenal. Like you said, if you have 150 people, and I always tell any podcaster when I meet them at these meetups, I'll say, how many downloads are you getting? And if they tell whatever the number is, I go, that's amazing. Because it's more than one, and that's kind of where I come from. But
somebody you don't know. Yeah, it's just that great. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is definitely. Yeah.
So I have a question, Chris, about people who've been podcasting for a while, okay? Because I've experienced this where you podcast for a while and you try to grow your show, and you grow a little, but it's not just about numbers. It's about the whole experience and growing as a person. And even though that sounds a little weird, but that is so true, that how much you grow from doing your own show. But I go to the seminar, I go to the Podfest, and I go to some events, and I'm learning and stuff. And I mean, it's not that I know everything about podcasting. I'm still learning as new stuff comes around, but I don't think I have the zeal that I had at the very, very beginning. So what can you say about that? People who've been doing it for a while and maybe they want to grow, but they don't know how, and maybe it's taking a toll on their attitude a little bit. I don't know.
I think some people, two things. Sometimes you've done what you had to do with your podcast and you're tied to it because the ego is tied to, this is how I'm known as this person. So I have seen podcasters that will pivot and start something new and they have that zeal again. So that's okay. Not saying that's always this, but sometimes that's the case. They need something different and refreshing. Other times what I like to do, and we do this at Podfest, hanging out with the people that are brand new actually helps spark like your excitement. Because sometimes you just need to be around some other people that are excited. And we, this past Podfest, we gave passes out to these local colleges, and one local college had international students. So one student was from Somalia, another student was, to see the smiles on their faces and the way they were looking at everything actually excited me, because their excitement was contagious. And I saw the gratefulness they had, and they were like, oh my God. And so for me, we love having that new blood, because it has to remind us that for those of us been doing it for a while, that this is an exciting time to live in. This is exciting that you have your own RSS feed to carry out your own message. I mean, if it wasn't for podcasting, I don't know where the world would be during the last couple of years, because it was podcasts that were challenging conventional wisdom and asking questions, and they just didn't know how to shut down their RSS feeds. And that's how a lot of information got out that today is considered factual. A year and a half ago was considered not allowed to be spoken, but podcasters had the freedom to do that. So for me, the medium excites me. I do think if someone's tired of a concept or idea, it's okay to pivot and change, even rename the show sometimes. My wife, Katie, is a great example. She had one of the top women's podcasts called Biz Women Rock. And as she got pregnant with our second daughter, something happened in just the chemistry of everything for her. And she's like, I think I'm done with this show. And we have to have a conversation. Like, this is driving she was doing a lot of consulting on that show. And we depended on that income. But if it was her time to be done with it, we set a time frame, and then she started meditation for women. And little did we know that as COVID happened, we thought fine. We had a good run. You like doing meditations. So what? A couple hundred people listened to it. Little did we know that just took off. So sometimes following that inner voice is very helpful for your well-being.
Could I actually suggest something? That happens to me. I get terribly bored with some idea, and it's like my colleagues say I constantly have a wasp in my arse. It's just like I'm already looking at the end of a project when I'm starting the project. I'm sitting here going, okay, guys, so how long are we going to have this running for? And everybody's looking at me going, why? Are we going to end it? And I'm saying, yeah, because that's me. That's always been me. Now, with my own podcast at the moment, I'm having a great time doing it. And this is the first time I've actually kind of said, I can keep it going. So what I usually do is I focus on the structure. I say 10 episodes, and then I'm going to take a break of a month. And I think that's a huge help, because it helps me to do stuff like this. And also, I always have a sideline project. Like over the last couple of years, we had a 6-part episode on Moldovan youth, people from Moldova. Just like what you were saying there, Chris, the timing was just weird, because we did it 6 months before what happened in Ukraine. And of course, with Ukraine, Moldova's right next door. So people were kind of saying, where is this place, Moldova? So our podcast just went boosh, straight up, because our podcast had 6 young people from Moldova talking about Moldova. So people kind of got a very good impression of the city. The country. They weren't having to go to the BBC or go to NBC or whatever. And it just, as you said, Chris, timing was perfect. But we always knew that was going to be a 6-parter. And when I did the 6 parts, somebody came to me who was involved in radio in Moldova and said to me, will you do another set? And I said, no, because I just didn't have it in me. It was like the buzz. It was like, I can't describe it. It was a bit like, it wouldn't have been fun to do it. Like doing a movie, like say, we really should have had a sequel to The Rock, with Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery. But nah, it was good. Leave it. Don't do anything with it. So I kind of felt that was important. So I think, Chris, if you have a sideline project, it can sometimes help you to keep your other projects on track, because then you're getting your buzz, so to speak, from the new projects.
Yeah, well, one thing, I'm about to start a new show, and it's like I mean, my show is already niched down so far, but I'm niching even further, and I can't wait. I can't wait to announce it. I'm not ready to because I don't want to, because I don't understand marketing and timing and stuff. So maybe I should mention it, but I'm not going to. But Chris Krimitsos, since we have you here, I wanted to ask you about relationship building because I don't know if I've ever met a better networker in my life. I mean, people probably don't know that you, even before you got into podcasting, you were running a local networking group, right? So talk to us about networking. Like what's the right way to network? Because I know for myself, I always want to, I identify people that I would love to meet and collaborate with, but I have no idea how to approach them. And then of course I approach them the wrong way. And of course they ignore me. And then I'm like, I don't know what to do now. And so what about relationship building?
So I've developed communities, and that's where my heart is. So two things. I grew up in a big extended Greek family in the U.S. So all the generation before me, they were all immigrants from another country, and they moved here to the U.S. And then me and my cousins all grew up with that influence. So I didn't realize it, but I grew up in a very family relatable structure, if that makes sense. So I could tell you what I do that works for me. A lot of people think I meet all these people all at once, and that's how I make friends. It's actually the opposite of what I do. If, like, for instance, when I'm going from town to town, I will make sure I meet one or two new people and try and retain that relationship and keep it going. Over time, you wind up having hundreds of connections because you don't need to know everybody in the room. But if you know one person, and then I always share with them, because people, after I help, I always ask, hey, is there something I could help you with? Kind of like Ken, like yourself, Chris. I have a lot of connections, so it's easy for me to say, oh, you need audio engineering or you need this or that. I'll say, what kind? And then I'll say, would you like an introduction? And then I'll send out an intro. And they always say, how can I help you? And I'll always say, well, obviously, if you're able to come to Podfest, that'd be amazing. However, if you don't come to Podfest, what I would love, if you meet someone that you think I should know, can you send an introduction for me to get to know them? And then literally every week, my inbox is filled with people introducing me to other people. And I love people, so I retain most of my relationships. I'll tell you the one bittersweet thing about knowing so many great people is I lose a lot of friends every year. So it's that's the hard side of having hundreds of amazing people. Is every year, there's someone that you're either going to the funeral or because Chris mentioned this, but for 10 years I ran a community here in Tampa. And we had 300 people that literally were my family. We did 1,000 plus events together. So that takes a toll as people get older. You lose them. But my life is filled with events. So if events mean great times with great people, so it's easy to have a good time. But I make it a point to just meet one great person at a time. I don't get overwhelmed. Let's say Ken and I had a great conversation. Maybe Ken will say, hey, Chris, you should meet my friend Brian. If I walked away with two, that's a bonus, if that makes sense. And some nights I meet 5 great people in a night, but I don't force it. And I don't say, oh man, I should have met everybody. But what'll happen is when I leave the meeting, Ken might say to me, hey, Chris, you said you needed a connection. And someone like Ken might be like, is there a specific connection I can help you with? And I might say, hey, someone in this, my friend works at that company. Let me see if they're interested and I'll connect you. So that's how, if you want to know, how do I get specific? Sometimes people ask me, I'll say, hey, I'm looking for these type of connections. And if you had a good time, they'll connect you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how about connecting online? Because that's a whole different animal. What are your thoughts on that?
I use an email called an e-intro, and it's a very simple formula. I'll give you an example. I'm part of an entrepreneurs group right now. That is where I hang my hat as a business owner. And I host a group of speakers and authors within that ecosystem. So I literally just put on actually, you know how I got the group? The lady gave me the group to be the next leader of it because I was the most active person in the chat. I don't know why this is. I know in podcasting, no one's active in the chat. Some of these groups, you'll be on a stream with 50, 60 people. So I'm always encouraging, great job. That was amazing. Here's the link that they just put out. So that, you don't realize this, but if you're the only active person in chat, the other 50 people are watching you and your name keeps pinging up on their chat. Some people don't like you because it's annoying, but the majority appreciate you. And that ingratiates me. And what happens is sometimes I'll start talking in the chat. Hey, you want to get on a call? and then I'll set up a call, and it's one of those discovery calls. It's kind of like, Ken, what do you do? It's how I started. Chris, what do you do? If they know etiquette, they'll ask, like, what do you do? If they don't, you don't tell them. Hopefully they do. And then by the time you're like, hey, what synergies do we have? Or, what are you up to? And then that's how I establish friends via Zoom or online. And then over time, that just, now it's easier because of COVID. Everybody's trained somewhat on how to use the tools, Before that, it was a little harder. Not everybody was as adept, but podcasters pretty much work because we have remember we had the best audio when COVID hit. And everybody was shocked that all these big TV hosts don't know how to use a mic at home. That was the eye opener for me. Like, they're using their laptop audio, and I'm like, what kind of producer do they have that someone didn't drive over to their home? You don't have to go in the house, but leave a mic on their doorstep that they didn't have a mic in the house, or the wrong mic, or they had the mic and it wasn't set up to read the mic. They're still using the laptop audio.
Oh yeah. So
that was
cringy.
a shocker. That was a shocker, Chris.
So, Ken, do you have anything to add? I'm sure you have something to add about networking and relationships and offline and online.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I wanted to ask you about, Chris, when you go to your events and so on, and you come across languages in terms of podcasting. Do you find that there is a growing market for non-English speaking podcasts?
Last night we had a full Spanish session out of Mexico, and then we went to Asia. Huge. Yeah. It's a huge growth. Brazil, Middle East is one of the largest right now.
Mm-hmm. So they're speaking their own local languages and local dialects.
I would say Spanish is big. Indonesia is big. Portuguese is probably up there. And when we say Spanish, Spain is probably the leader of the Spanish speaking, but right behind it, you're going to have Argentina and Mexico. But yes, we are noticing huge growth. Because
obviously this is an issue that we have to deal with if we're hosting European events, is that there is a growing market for, say, French and German speaking podcasts, which would have been non-existent pre-COVID, actually, because as you just said, the people who were doing podcasting pre-COVID were either people like ourselves or they were journalists making something on the side. And if they're journalists in Europe, their podcast is almost 99% guaranteed to be in English because they're already on the market. They know that they need to get, they're also looking for jobs, whether it be in the BBC or whatever. So usually it was in English. But what I found, Chris, is that people are coming to me and asking me this question: should I podcast in English? And what I say to them is, well, your content is important. So if you're going to be talking about something that's in relation to your country, you should definitely broadcast in your own language. If you're doing something that's more universal, well, I would probably maybe think about doing duo episodes where you do one in your own language and one in English, because then you're going to get in the crowd that you lose if you don't use one of those languages. So, but it is a growing thing. I'm sure you'll agree.
It's growing, and I think what I would say to anyone is find whichever side of that equation it has the biggest upside, start there.
Yeah. The other question is okay, Chris. Go ahead. Or you had something?
Yeah, I just shout out Daniel Hager's here. Hey, Daniel, good to see you, brother. Hi, he says agreed here in Germany. It's growing. Everyone who wants to get in their podcast, and also the Liberty dude. Oh yeah, talking. I think he's referencing not people who are viewers but not commenting. When enthralled by the conversation, intent listening can come off as silent non-engagement. Of course, that's true. Good point.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that term, intent listening. I'll say that to my wife when she's giving out to me. No, I was intent listening. I promise.
Film that for us, Ken. Thanks.
Fill that void.
YouTube Shorts. Come on.
So Chris, just one more thing I wanted to ask you as well. What's the gender balance that you're coming across? I mean, in Europe, we have a lot of guys podcasting, but what I've seen is that it's beginning to grow as well. But the girls who are podcasting are younger. So I'm just curious what you're coming across. Are you looking at demographics like that?
Honestly, Podfest in general is pretty well balanced. We're 55 male to 45, but that's our attendee mix. And part of that is we've done a lot of work of going out to a lot of female-based groups and promoting and sharing. Yep. And our speakers. So, but if you go to I went to a true crime conference in Seattle. It was 90% female, younger, of course.
Yeah, and that's so true. You're smacked on it there. Yeah,
I couldn't. I opened my eyes to how big true crime is, and that the female.
And this is the thing. the same demographics are working with books that they're working with podcasts like that, aren't they? Because it's the same with true crime for publishers, that female readers are much more than male readers when it comes to true crime. So it just shows you, it doesn't do any harm to look at other demographics from other forms of media, doesn't it? When you're trying to think about your podcast and who it should appeal to and who you want it to appeal to.
Yeah, listen, it's right now the growth. Europe is seeing huge growth. And like you said, the different languages are French, especially, and German. I didn't mention those two, but we had a bunch of people from Berlin on Podfest Global as we wrapped up. So it's a huge opportunity right now. I know Chris Curran and I, U.S. is maturing, which is good. There's opportunities, but there's just growth all over the rest of the globe, which is really exciting.
Yeah, it is. Daniel's in Germany too, so that's cool. Yeah, all right, so you're gonna go to London, and then I also think I remember you were saying that your wife, because she has the meditation podcasts, and I just wanted you to recap, because I think I know, but I'd love to hear it again, how she started with one meditation podcast, but then she started a bunch of other ones.
So what happened was, during COVID, we didn't know, like everybody else, what was going to come out of it. So she was doing her meditation podcasts. I was having hypochondriac attacks. This was before we knew anything. Like, oh my God, zombie apocalypse. This was in March of 2020, because we were just watching footage coming out of China of like people getting overrun. So she created some coronavirus meditations to calm me down, but she put it on her podcast and they went viral. And then a few months later, when we're looking at her stats, she said, do you mind if you take a look at what we can do? And I said, sure. I go, as long as you take my advice, seriously, only because I'm the husband. Sometimes you might be like, but I go, if you take it seriously, I don't mind taking the time. And she goes, no, absolutely. So one of the most downloaded things that she had were her sleep meditations. So her original show was meditation for women. We then took the sleep meditations, created an entire sleep meditation show. And then we decided, well, if people need meditations to sleep, I'm sure they need them to wake up in the morning. So she created morning meditations. And then now she's up to, I lose track, but it's 11 or 12 shows. By the end of the year, she'll have over 20 shows. She's built an entire industry out of it. She has 3 editors and all kinds of writers, and she's an amazing human being. She has like 4 or 5 sleep shows at this point. So she's built something very special, and she's pretty much on every platform at this point except for LinkedIn.
Wow, yeah, that's really great. And possibly the greatest thing about it is the fact that meditation is actually that valuable, that it's worth starting all those shows. And I mean, this is such a great example of, a lot of people talk about politics and social issues and what should we do and what's right and all this. And it's, from my point of view, because I've been meditating for years and I've studied, Eastern spirituality for many years, and meditation, no one wants to hear it, but unless you're in a bad position in your life and you need some help, then people are open to meditation. But most people, they don't even understand what meditation is or how it can help. But it's definitely the single best thing you can do in your life to regulate your mind and to give you a broader awareness of life and help you not get sucked in, or not get sucked into bad habits and destroy your life and relationships and everything. So kudos to her, man.
She reaches millions of women. She gets like 4 million downloads a month, but it all started with just a couple hundred. So it's been incredible to watch. She's coming up on her 100th millionth download in like 2 months.
Wow. All right, party.
But that's not how it started. It started, like I said, she was listening to her voice. She was done, kind of like what Ken said. She was done with the one project and she wanted to start another one. And she was just seeking to put some little good pieces of poetry out there, because she's a writer. So she writes. Then she had the voice work because she had already done podcasting. When you combine the two, that's where the talent, that's where it really sings. So we've been very blessed, and the emails and the letters that she gets from people all over the world are just, she's always blown away that some people are terrified to go to sleep. You don't realize how bad some people have it, and they will listen to her voice to calm them down so they could get some sleep for the night. So it's pretty amazing stuff.
Wow. You're muted, Ken.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, it's fantastic. I just want to say fantastic. That's amazing that I can hear that. It's just, it's success out of nowhere. And soon, most importantly, you're doing something that you love. That's amazing. Fair play.
She just followed her. She's very intuitive. So she followed her voice. And if you look up Women's Meditation Network or just Women's Meditation, she comes up pretty much everywhere. Like, it's like those keywords are hers, basically. But and then I had the background with Podfest to be able to help her and say, hey, let's talk to so-and-so, this, and those small things helped. But honestly, it's the hard work she puts in for what she's built. And she's very good at, and this is a good skill to have, she's a good operator, operations-wise. So that allows her to create standard operating procedures for everything. And she thinks about it. I always say, because she's, her lineage is like German. I go, you got that German operational mind. She doesn't like that for whatever reason, but she's able to really look at things in almost like a spreadsheet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's an ability to compartmentalize. Yeah, it's really good. It's
I don't have that ability, but yeah, it's very precious. And the way she even does all her files, it's like, hey, do you have this? Oh, it's right here. Do you have this in this format? I have it in this format, that format. It's written over here. She saves everything, and it's all it's perfect for anyone who would want to, systems.
Yeah, systems are, oh my goodness, invaluable, right?
They're invaluable, but the level at which her brain works in systems is incredible to watch.
That's cool. And so, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, can I just briefly, Chris, I'm just, we're talking about podcasting. We're talking about the future of podcasting. And, I just have somebody here with me now who's the future of podcasting. So I just want to say hello to my daughter, Lydia.
Hello.
Hey, Lydia.
Hello.
Well, what Lydia does is she has her own podcast, don't you, Lydia?
Well, I do it with you.
Yeah, you do it with me, but not for long. So you want to tell the guys what you do?
I review books on a podcast that I do with my dad called Lydia's Booktastic Podcast.
And how many episodes do we have? 47.
Yeah, I think 47.
Yeah. So I think I love the idea of this, because for me it's introducing technology to kids without the threats that come with the latest technology. There's nothing threatening about a podcast for kids. Even putting kids on YouTube, there's always that sort of Damocles that hangs over you. If it's not going to be you worrying, it's going to be somebody else giving out about you exploiting your children, whatever. But I think for podcasting, it's a wonderful opportunity. Kids are learning a really good set of skills. They're learning, as you said, their coordination and organizing skills because they have to have their podcast in order. She reads, religiously a book every couple of days because she knows she wants to have it for the podcast. She's reading a real book because we don't take invitations from authors online, so it has to give them a real book. And, she's also learning about how to actually operate the equipment and what's important and what's not important and how to edit stuff. And she's 10. So, I always think that for podcasting, if you want to introduce kids to something that is valuable, but it's a new tech, I think podcasting is amazing. And I'm just wondering, Chris, did you come across kids when you were doing this?
So I have the kid-friendly network. So I create a little network for kids. And the reason is I had my daughter in the car. I was listening to Joe Rogan. Yeah. And until you have a kid in the car, you have no idea how many times they say the F word on Rogan. Because you're an adult, so you're just like, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You have a kid, you look behind, little 1-year-olds learning how to speak, and now that's not going to fly. So we created the kid-friendly podcast. So we started with kid-friendly joke of the day, and myself and Jimmy Murray, comedian, kind of did that. So we have a few shows for children. We're looking to amp it up and really get. It's going now, but we really want to up the quality of the content. However, you inspired me because I have 2 daughters, one 7 and one 4. My daughter Sedona loves to read kid books like Dragons Love Tacos, Dr. Seuss right now. I can't imagine the experience that you have with your daughter that you have on record for the rest of your life. I mean, it's really cool, when you think of it from that.
And here's the amazing thing. We have a 6-year-old, Lucy. So Lucy's guested a few times since she was 3 on the podcast. And last week, Lydia wasn't well. So Lucy stepped in. She said, look, I can do this. So I said, "You really
Nice.
sure?" She says, "Yeah, I can do this. It's coming out tomorrow, so you'll see a 6-year-old doing a podcast."
I'll be listening. I love that. That to me, that's
Yeah.
And you're right about the whole social media thing. It's when you painted it that way, it's a very safe way to bond without any of the downsides, especially for video. Like you said, there's a lot of different things that go on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Lydia can be a guest on one of your podcasts at one point. So, she's more than willing to come on and have a chat. It'd be nice to have an Irish
I
speaker
got
on
to get
there.
with Jimmy. We would love that. Read a couple of jokes for us.
Yeah,
Daniel the German.
Lydia has an entire book of puns, so there you go. So Lydia, you better go on up to bed. It's night. It's 10 p.m. Thanks for coming on, honey. See you. Just want to say goodbye to you guys.
Lydia.
Goodbye.
Thanks, Lydia.
Bye.
Okay. Thanks for that, Chris.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was great. Wow. Good for her. Good for you. Really nice. Yeah, I mean, look, podcasting touches so many people in so many important ways, and yeah, speaking of the future of podcasting, I wanted to share this. I'm going to share the screen real quick, but if we look at there's a new show called The Future of Podcasting.
Woo.
Wait, there we go. With Dave Jackson and Daniel J. Lewis. I don't know if you guys knew about this.
No, this just came out the other day. Awesome.
Yeah, well, it's fairly new. I mean, they have 10 episodes, but within a couple months, they've done about 10 episodes. And it's, they cover so much, it's all about the future of podcasting. A lot of it's based on Podcasting 2.0, which is basically adding on a whole lot of new functionality and great stuff to the regular podcasting RSS feed. And I actually have my new show. I'm hoping to be a guest on their show because, my new show is going to be about something, the future of podcasting. But one thing I found, Chris, so you run Podfest, obviously, and a lot of times, I mean, when I apply to speak, because, I basically teach really deep professional audio production. It's not for everyone. In fact, probably only like 5% of podcasters would even care about me, that's the way it should be. Okay. But the 5% that love that stuff, they like me and they like my show and all that. And I like to speak about these deep, more professional audio production, but it doesn't always make sense for, let's say, a conference organizer like you to let me speak about, compression and EQ, because how many people in the event are actually going to go wander into my room and want to see that talk, right? So what do you see in terms of new tech or new podcasting, the future of podcasting topics being presented at conferences? I mean, we have to have some of it, but I guess we can't cover it too much.
No, I mean, you have to do a percentage, but definitely AI, all the AI education's big right now. Anything to do with, for me, Podcasting 2.0, I think is very important. We had Todd Cochran on our main stage actually talking about it this past year. So we actually take that future development and take it very seriously. And we always tell people like, hey, this is on the cutting edge. Doesn't mean you have to do it right now, but we want you to be aware of it because could be 2-3 years from now, this is the norm. So we want you to know what options you have. So we're always trying to like push the envelope of what's out there. What we're going to start doing, I think, next year is when we're putting out sometime this year, when we're putting out our speaker submission, we're going to have like 100 suggestions of topics we'd like to see covered that most people probably are not aware. Things like as simple as like if you have a Discord group, how to create a Discord community for your podcast space. Things like if we didn't ask for it, people usually submit. I'll tell you what I see. How to be a better interviewer, how to be a better guest. We'll see that 100 times each, right? Literally, not figuratively, submitted.
Right.
And then, Chris, you're one of the rare ones because not a lot of people are doing high end. So that one catches our attention because we are looking for someone to serve the outliers in the community. Because people that might come to your presentation might not go to anything else because they already kind of have everything covered. So they might want to know how to do better, or they won't want that one tip from Chris to how to do what they're doing even better, and that's what they're looking for. So we try and balance it out. You do have your main tracks: audience growth, monetization, branding, marketing, but then tech is important to us. So we do have a tech track. And then we work with the podcast editors community, Steve Stewart and Mark Deal. This past year, they had a booth out in the hallway, and it was Ask an Editor. So you could hit an editor up 24/7 during the conference. We found that works really well because people sometimes are embarrassed to say they don't know something. So when you have a booth where you could just go up and have a conversation, it's easier for us to get them the help that they need. So
I was hanging out at their booth almost the whole time earlier this year. Yeah.
Cool, right? Yeah. It's cool how that works.
Yeah, it's just so helpful. And the whole, like the monetization part with the podcasting 2.0, how it sort of integrates with crypto, like that is so new, and even crypto is so new to most people. But it's like such a cool thing, and it's so good for podcasters because it's like podcasting already embodies freedom, right? Like you could do whatever you want, pretty much. But now with new ways to monetize, and without going through the conventional channels, it's just gonna make it even more of the people's medium. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel about it.
Oh no, it's there's also decentralized domains, which I don't want to get into, but that's even more protection.
Yeah.
So I've looked into all this. I actually own a decentralized domain for Podfest. So I'm big into that space because as we move into the future, it's just good to have all our options open. And I do believe I think it's still going to take years for all of it to develop. It always does. For those of us that are early adapters, we always think like, oh, this could be big. It takes like 10 years later. And you're like, we were doing this back then. We stopped because no one was doing anything with it. So it's something I've always learned. You just got to wait for everybody to catch up. But it's exciting times. The AI is a little scary. It's moving so fast right now. And I don't know if you saw it, 1,000 Technologists wrote a letter like, let's pause for 6 months so we have some ground rules for all of us before we but I have a feeling, Pandora's out of the box and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely out of the box. Ken, you have any thoughts on the podcasting 2.0, technology, the future, all that?
I'm
freedom.
I mean, look, the way I like what you're saying there, Chris, Mr. Curran. I think the only medium that was kind of similar is publishing books. You can publish your own book nowadays. You've got so many different mediums that can do that, and you can sell it on Amazon, whatever. And I think podcasting, up to 3 years ago, wouldn't have even come close to being categorized in the same vein. Whereas I think now it definitely is. It's like the freedom is even more liberal than publishing a book. And what I am worried about all the time is about misinformation, and how, if we're going to be stepping into the next generation of podcasting, how that's going to be impacted and how it's going to be stopped. Because I mean, there's no doubt in America that podcasting, it's been used as a weapon, for a lot of very unscrupulous people, whether it be selling, stuff that's completely snake oil, or, trying to push people down the road with a political agenda. And, I'm just wondering what you think, Chris, in terms of that, and how should there be, because in Europe there is definitely, there's going to be, bridgeheads put in to stop that type of stuff from happening. And what I'm afraid of is that if it gets too bad, we'll end up what happened with radio, where radio became regularized, and that, you basically had to have a license to have a radio station. And I'm curious about whether or not that can seep into podcasting as a kind of deterrent to stop people from using it in unscrupulous ways. I'm just curious what your head is in on that, because I mean, things are happening so quickly in technology. It's not just podcasting. And we know with social media, we missed the boat on that. The Pandora's box was open and we ignored it. And, we know what the results of that is around the world. So I'm just curious, with regards to how podcasting could be going one way or the other.
Is that for Curran or?
That's for you, Chris. Yeah, that's for you, Chris. Chris.
Oh, for me? Yeah.
No, both of you. Well, start with Chris Krimitsos. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well, there's two sides of the coin, because I remember at Podfest, Tom Rossi, Buzzsprout, and a couple of the hosting providers are worried about Spotify really owning the whole space. And then what happens is you have one company because Apple is kind of ambivalent. Who knows what's gonna, they haven't really
Yeah.
done much. So they're worried about one company consolidating power, and they definitely want the RSS to be out there for people. I don't know. I kind of like having the RSS where people have their voice, and I think people have, I'd like to think people have common sense of what to accept, what not to accept. And they have the right to listen or not listen. It's on demand too, so you have to kind of seek out stuff. But right now, I think the bigger concern in the U.S. is that Spotify's consolidating so quickly, and the RSS feed is a big thing. So I don't know. Right now, we're in a consolidation process, from what I've seen, and I hope that's not the case. I think, like Chris Curran said, these new technologies might help us keep things,
keep it democratized. In other words,
pretty much, yeah.
Chris, what do you
I
think?
wouldn't even say democratized. I would just say free and open and unregulated and just free. I mean, I'm not a Democrat or Republican or a liberal or a conservative. I'm a voluntarist / anarchist. And so I don't agree with any impeding on anything. So, and I know that's, some people might think that's extreme, but people are smart enough to figure it out. People are smart enough to regulate themselves, and we just have to leave it to the people. I don't want any consolidated power structure telling me what I have to do. I don't care who you are. I don't care what side you're on. You're not telling me what to do. You have no right to do that. It's not morally correct. No one gave you that authority, and you don't have that authority. You're pretending like you have the authority, and everyone else is playing along that you have that authority, but you actually have zero authority. So I don't play any of these games, and I don't like discussing right and left and all that garbage, because that's all the same. It's just, I think, like you said, Pandora's out of the box. Podcasting, especially the internet, it's free and open. If they try to clamp down on it, we're going to figure out how to get around it. There's always going to be free and open communication. You're never going to stop it. So that's great. That's great. To me, that's great. And you know who else's opinion we should get? It's Ever Gonzalez, everybody. Oh yeah, baby.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What's happening?
It's good to see all of you.
Oh, you're
Great.
you're glitching out a little bit.
Oh shoot.
Maybe try to reconnect. Every time you talk, it's like yeah.
Is it really still?
Yeah. Go out and come back in if you could.
We'll do.
Okay, yeah. If it's not hard. Yeah.
Looks like he's in like the Library of Congress or something, or Hogwarts,
He just signed a few bills into law. Yeah.
yeah. He's one of those signing pens.
Hey, Eileen's here. What's up, Eileen?
Hey, Eileen.
Great to see you. Thanks for dropping by the lounge. And you should come on with us one of these days when we do the lounge.
Yes, we need more women.
Oh, God. Yeah. Okay. More women is good. And here comes Ever. He's coming back. Let's see what he's got. Let's see if he's glitching. I can't wait to launch my new show. I'm so psyched.
When can we look for it?
It's going to be a couple months, because I want to do it right. And hey, here's a question for you guys. I'm thinking about, here's Ever. Let's check him. Hey, brother.
Hey, how about now? Hang on one second.
Okay. So when I launch the show, I also want to launch a small course. Like, I literally want it to be like a $19 course, like just a small course. So I kind of want to get the first episode ready and the course ready, and then I want to launch it all at once. Do any of you see any issues with that strategy? Is that no?
You're not going to lose much on it, are you?
Okay.
It's not going to take up much time. So yeah.
Okay.
Sprinkles on top. That's what you think of it as, The ice cream's important, but it's nice to have a few sprinkles on top as well.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thanks.
that's definitely go for it. As long as you're not changing the flavor halfway through the bite, you're grand.
Right.
How about now? You guys hear me now?
Oh yeah,
Yay.
you're good now. So
Better.
Ever runs the Outlier Podcast Festival. Tell us about that, Ever, real quick.
Yeah, we've been doing it since 2017 officially, and we do 2 or 3 of these a year all over the U.S. So we pick kind of different cities where they have a cool podcasting community, and we go into the city and put on a 2-day event, and it's been a lot of fun. Obviously, with COVID, we kind of put a pause to it, in person wise anyway, for about 2 years, but we're back and we're ready to go. Yeah, we hosted one this past May in Austin again, and it was fantastic. We had a great time. So now we're doing LA in May coming up, and then Toronto, Canada in September.
Oh, Canada, eh?
We're officially going
baby.
international.
Toronto's amazing. Yeah, I know. There's a
great.
few.
Toronto's gonna be big.
There's a few chess streamers that I watched. They lived in Calgary for years. Then they moved to Toronto. They stream chess. I don't know. You guys ever watch chess streams?
Yes.
Out of curiosity, how many people are watching? A lot?
A lot.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, we lost. Wait, he's back. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so those are Twitch streamers. They play chess. They stream chess. That was one of the. By the way, speaking of the COVID years, during the COVID years, live streaming for chess players just absolutely went through the roof, and chess in general went through the roof, which I personally love because chess is a game, especially for kids. It's one of the greatest things you can teach young kids because it's
Lydia's a chess player. She's been doing it for 2 years.
Oh,
I haven't got a
so
clue.
good.
I haven't got a clue how she does it, but she beats 15-year-olds.
Wow. Oh, that is so
I don't
good.
know. Is that good? I don't know. I haven't got a clue.
It's always good. So you
that's why
play
she's able-
ever?
I do play, yeah. I mean, obviously not as good as all those people, but I love it. I taught my kids a few years ago, and we kind of do it all the time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And where are you now, Ever?
I'm in Austin.
Oh, you're
Are
in.
you in
Okay.
the library?
No, it's in my house.
Looks nice.
Wow.
Looks like a
That's
really
paneling.
high-end, Hogwarts or something. I love the door.
Yeah, it's old school. So we're actually moving again. Originally I'm from LA, moved up to Utah for about 15, 16 years. We've been out here in Austin taking care of my mom who was sick, who recently passed away. And so now we're moving back to Utah, northern Utah this time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fair play.
You saw Austin? Austin grew quite a bit, right?
Yeah. It's been crazy. I mean, we've been coming out here for the last 15, 16 years because we have family down here, and always kicking myself for not buying property 10, 15 years ago, right? And now it's crazy, obviously, with Tesla and Joe Rogan and some of these other big name comedians and celebrities. It's insane. I mean, it's a good thing, but it's insane.
Have you been
Then we have South by Southwest and all these other music festivals that attract people, but now people, instead of just coming in and heading out, they're staying, which is good.
How was South by Southwest, Ever? You did an event there, didn't you?
We did, yeah. It was a lot of fun. It last year kind of felt like people were still a little bit iffy about coming out, but this year it was full and the streets were I mean, they were loud and a lot of people all over the place and a ton of cool events in and out of South by. So I think it's back. I mean, and you would know this, Chris, most events for the most part are back, and people don't seem to have an issue with it.
Yeah, thank
I
goodness.
think the scare has gone away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. That's really good. Ken?
The only thing that remains, I think, and I don't know what it's like in Ireland, in the United States, but in the UK and Ireland, I mean, the cost of staging an event is just rocketed through the roof. I mean, like you could get it, like if you were to organize a room, say in a hotel for maybe 100 people, you'd be looking at probably for the day, you'd probably get it for around €300, which I think is about $310, $20 or something like that. Now it's gone up to like €2,000.
Whoa. Is that post-COVID or has that always been the case?
Post-COVID.
Really?
Yeah. Just event staging. And the other thing that's really crippling everything is insurance. I mean, they have this huge big motorcycle race here in Ireland. It's called the Northwest Derby. It's like road racing, goes right back to the 1890s. And it's one of the biggest events. It's like the Daytona 500 of road racing. and it's held in Ireland. It was almost cancelled this year for the first time in its history because they couldn't afford the insurance. And it's the same with everything, whether you're hosting a car event or whether you're hosting a podcast event. If it's not a private thing, the insurance is colossal. I don't know what it's like in the States, but it's really affecting everybody trying to get back on the road, you know, in event staging and stuff like that. And it's also killing. The only thing that's not killing really is music, because concerts are concert venues are dedicated towards that, so they kind of take that in the hands. But it's really not good for people trying to get back out, as you're saying, Ever. You know, people are trying to get back out after being locked up, whether they liked it or not.
Yeah.
And it has a physical and mental effect on people. And then when they try and do something that they've been staging for 20 years maybe, and then suddenly they can't do it because it's just unaffordable. It's not even economical. It's just really bad, you know. So it's something, Chris, you have to watch out for if you are thinking about events. You know, insurance is the big issue, you know. Sorry for bringing it downer on that.
Yeah, I think here in the U.S., most people, I mean, I've seen it in my events. I'm sure Chris has seen it at his. People are hungry to get back out there again, and it just has a different feel to it. I mean, I think people are a little bit more grateful that they actually get to go out and participate and be part of a community, an in-person community. And so it's been a lot of fun post-COVID since we started up again.
Sorry, Ever, can I ask you a question? You've been hosting and staging these events since 2017, you said. So that means
festivals, we've been hosting events in general since 2013. So entrepreneurial events.
That adds more weight to my question then. So you've been almost 10 years in this, and that is like a lifetime when we're talking about the, you know, social media and so on, and how the mediums are worked and how technology is developed. And I'm wondering, what is the biggest change you've seen in podcasting since 2013 to 2023?
I mean, everybody and their mother has a podcast now, right? Everybody's a guru. Right. Everybody's an expert on this and that, which is great. I mean, more power to people. And I mean, those are the people that we kind of cater to, right? We want indie podcasters that kind of grow into that next level. But as far as podcasting, the talent out there is insane now, right? Before, not that there's anything wrong with this, but it was a weird guy in his basement talking about UFOs and things like that, right? Now there are great storytellers and just experts in these different fields. Forgetting about everything else, they're focusing on podcasting, and you know, the technology is going to continue to grow and it's going to get easier and all that stuff, which is great. I'm more focused on the content and what the people are talking about and saying, or the interviews, the high level interviews that they're having. That's what interests me the most, right? The technology is going to come and go. Again, it's going to get better, but it's the talent that really has surprised me in a good way. Because I mean, at our events, we limit our attendees to about 150, 200 in attendance. We like smaller, more intimate shows, and I am surprised by the level of talent that kind of comes out to it. And you know, these aren't just, you know, I don't know how to say it. They are very talented. They know what they're doing. And sometimes I'm like, why are they in my event, right? Why are they doing this? But the level is through the roof, and I love it every single time. And they are hungry to kind of get out there and get the word out of what they're doing, and they should. So they're taking advantage of our stage, Chris's stage, everything that we can do in the podcast community and industry.
And just one more question, because it's in relation to, just before you came on, I had my daughter on here. She has her own podcast. She's 10 years of age. And I'm wondering, do you see a lot of younger people at events than you did, say, 5 years ago?
I am seeing younger people, yes. They are leaning towards, what I noticed, the difference is that they are leaning more towards just being content creators, where podcasting is a smaller part of it, right? They're YouTubing, they're doing live streams, they're doing Twitch, they're doing those things. And podcasting is a small part of it, but we'll take it, right? I mean, we want the next generation to kind of feel comfortable in front of a camera or a mic, and they aren't shy about it. They are great. My 15-year-old, he kind of has a revisionist history type of a podcast, right? He's into World War I, World War II, and he's, you know, putting out content saying, what if Germany won the war? What would the U.S. look like now? And he creates these stories and this research. And they're doing it without my help, right? And I'm assuming a lot of these kids are doing it the same.
Yeah, it's just like what I was saying to the two guys here. Lydia's been doing, she's up to episode 47 now.
Oh, wow.
She does it with me. But like last week, she wasn't very well. And my younger daughter, who's 6, took over from her. And I said to myself, okay, this is going to be either going one way or the other. It's going to be okay or a disaster. And it turned out to be really, really brilliant. And it's, I kind of underestimated her, and I was a bit annoyed with that because she's been on a few times. So obviously she was watching and listening very carefully. And when she got her big moment, da-da, she was like Edith Piaf, this is my moment. And she just went out and did it. And she shocked and she surprised me in a lovely way. And the only thing I was thinking was then, oh God, there must be so many kids out there who are listening to their moms and dads podcasting and saying, I can't wait to get onto the microphone. So I kind of envisaged a revolution, as you say, Ever. It's going to be more entwined with what kids use. They use so many different things and they tire of things and they move on to the next big thing. So I think you're right. I think podcasting is going to remain as an integral part of, the whole social media world.
Agreed. And now think about, for our parents and even us a little bit, how many different channels did we have on TV, right? We had a handful of
7.
channels.
Yeah.
Now everybody and their mother has a channel. And the kids are so comfortable sharing their lives and being in front of these cameras and these mics. And I mean, I'm excited about what this is going to bring. I mean, there's some dangers to it a little bit as well. But overall, I think that, these kids are going to take it to a completely different level that is going to be exciting to see.
Yeah, not only is the industry maturing, but all the people who want to start their podcast are maturing. And by the way, Chris, if you have to run, that's cool. But we're only going to stream for 19 more minutes at most because then we're going to end the stream and we're going to make sure everyone goes over to America's Untold Stories, which is hosted by Eric Hunley and Mark Robert. So, Eric, what's up, man? And America's Untold Stories, they start their Freeform Friday stream in about 18 minutes, and it's just great. Anyway, so whatever. But yeah, so the podcasting industry we were talking about it earlier, how the pandemic exposed everybody who had terrible audio setups. And all of us podcasters were like, oh, come on, man, get a real mic. Right? Yeah. And I think it's the same thing with not only content, but like delivery and you know what I mean? Like it's almost like people are starting to respect people's time more. Like you can't just get on and talk nonsense for 40 minutes because now maybe 10, 12 years ago you could do that. And you still can, but my point is that I think the listeners are becoming a little more sophisticated and also the hosts are too. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely agree 100%. You gotta package your whole job. You can't just say, come on and start talking about the same thing, for 5 or 6 minutes before going into the content that you're supposed to be presenting. I again, it's the advice I always give when I do interview podcasts. And I always say, you're not that important. Stop talking, get to the guests. It's like just no one cares. They want to hear what you're asking the guest. So, you can't get an ego about this. If you get an ego and you think it's the opposite way, well, then I should be an MC for a cabaret show or something because, that's not what people want to hear. And as you said there, Chris, people are getting more sophisticated about what content they want. And I think they're actually still allowing for slightly bad production values as long as the content is really good. So I still think, that famous term content is king still applies in podcasting and will probably apply for many, many years to come.
It's just the barrier of entry is so low now, right? That a lot of people, again, in their basements are producing high quality content and it just looks good. It sounds good. So, I mean, that's a plus for the industry in general.
Yeah, and the tools we have. I mean, everybody has a literal recording studio in their computer. I mean,
yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I remember when I first recorded my demos in music 30 years ago, to this year, actually, I like 3 reel-to-reels. And, we were like trying to desperately create these sounds on these reel-to-reels with a, 64-track mixing desk that was analog. The only thing digital on it was the clock. It was like, it just now when I think about it, and I say what we could have done with the technology 30 years ago. I think we briefly spoke about this, Chris, last week, So, it's amazing.
So I have a question for you, Chris Krimitsos. Dave Jackson is famous for telling people don't worry about audio quality. Just start your podcast, and he doesn't mean start it with terrible audio. He of course, he means have at least decent audio. You can't be horrible. You got to be at least decent. Decent audio, then start your podcast. Do you also, sort of suggest or give that kind of advice, Chris Krimitsos?
I mean, I wrote the book Start Ugly for that very reason. I always tell people it's not start ugly, stay ugly. It's start ugly and perfectly execute along the way. The only reason I say that is doing events for as long as I have literally seen someone come to an event for 3 years straight thinking about the same idea. In the meantime, someone started 2 bad ideas and then they hit on the third one. But that happened within a year. By the time the third year passed, they already had a hit show. So when you see that, because we get to see hundreds of case studies, if not thousands, coming through our doors, you realize that the person willing to execute will always, as long as they're willing to learn from it, right? You could execute badly. That's not good if you don't acknowledge that. But if you execute and then you start iterating and perfecting, we had one person to a point where Neil, my buddy, would say to the guy, "We know you're not starting a podcast, so just don't even mention it." Because it was like,
I think I know who you're talking about.
I go, "Neil, don't be so rude." He goes, someone's got to give him a wake up call because he got tired after 5 years. Talking about having to start. This was at our meetup ever, not at the main show, but it was at the meetup where we really know each other. And he was like, "Dude, no problem. Just don't tell us you're starting because you're not." He goes like that. So I was like, "Man, that was brutal." But he goes, "Someone needs to wake him up." I was like, so it could be that exaggerated. So yeah, getting started is half the battle. And I'm a big proponent of, okay, you did it like Ever was talking about. Some of these kids, they start 10 different concepts on the 11th concept, literally, because they're just trying stuff on. They hit it big and someone's like, "How'd they do it?" Well, they were in their bedroom with their green screen behind them and they were doing what do you call it? Minecraft. Then the next day they were doing this. Then by the 10th time they found a niche in history that they liked. And now they have an audience that follows them. So as we get older, I don't know why, but we're afraid of failing. Something about age and it catches up on us. So you got to stay nimble, be youthful, and be willing to see failure as not really failure, just trying something that didn't work out and try something new.
Right.
Yeah. What was it? If we're not embarrassed by our first episode, right? Then we waited too long.
100%.
Can I just quickly tell you my first episode I ever did in a podcast, right? I was invited by because I worked in this organization that was a lot of connections with the European Union, and we were invited to go to the European Parliament Media Center, which is like this monster, it's a behemoth thing, it's like you can have your own TV channels, whatever. And, I had brought my Zoom H6, and I was going to interview a couple of people that I was planning to meet up with. And, we sat down at this table just outside the center door. And the guy said to us, the security guard came over and I was going, "Oh, here we go. He's going to tell us to move." And he goes, "Hey, guys, are you doing a podcast here?" And we said, "Yeah." "Come on in here. You can use the media center." And I sat down and he goes, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I'll just use your chairs and I'll just use the H6 because I was so embarrassed. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared because all this equipment was looking at me. Now I would just go, bring it on. So yeah, it didn't turn out too bad because we had really good guests. I mean, we had 5 or 6, senior politicians in Europe, and that's their job. So if you grab them and you say to them, "We need 5 minutes," they'll give it to you. They don't even care who you are because you're in the door. They reckon if you're in the door, you're inside the office, then you must be, credited. So you're okay. So looking back on it, we had great guests, but yeah, the quality was terrible. But, at the end of the day, I can still listen to it and go, yeah, it's not bad actually. So yeah, I still go back to what we said here. Content can really surpass, dodgy quality in sound.
So I think all of us are involved in teaching podcasters something. What do you guys, and we mention, every time we get together and talk, it's always like a seminar, right? "Oh yeah, well, you should do this and do that, whatever." But what sort of tips and advice are people needing but really not getting? Is there anything that we're not addressing or addressing as much as we should?
I could tell you the noise when you have a group of beginners in a room. This is my favorite thing to say to them. And I love when the veterans are in the room too with me. I'll always say, "Do you guys want to know what the number one mistake is that all these veterans, including myself, have made that you're probably going to make, but you could avoid it, but you probably won't?" And they're all like, yeah. I go, we forget to hit record. And you can hear the veteran just laugh. Like it always hits a veteran. So you could ask any one of us. There was a time we were either too excited, we're too busy, we forgot to hit record, had a great conversation, or we didn't check the thing and stopped recording and we just weren't looking. And I think for beginners, I think the fear is like, what happened? So when you tell them the worst that could happen, I go, we all survived. We're all still here. It really seems to resonate, and it gets a laugh from the veterans. The beginners are like ready to, they're like, oh my God. But the veterans are like, yeah, that's happened to me. And once you take that out of the equation, everybody's like, okay, if these people screwed up that bad and they're still here and they're doing it, and then it gets them going.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to obviously teach at our events, right? We've been doing it for a while now, but I was kind of a mentor for a entrepreneurial class at a local university for a while, and whether it's podcasting and content creating or entrepreneurship, the thing that I talk to them first is they need to play to their strengths, right? What are you good at right now? What are you the best at? Or what are you comfortable with? Start with that and then kind of grow and develop from there, right? Don't try to be, I don't know, Joe Rogan. Don't try to be these guys and gals in podcasting that are experts at this point. But if you're starting, what are you the best at, right? Chris, what are you the best at? You're whatever it is, start there and then grow and expand. And then the things that don't come naturally or are going to take way too long, then hopefully outsource it or work your show around it or whatever it is. But right, everybody has a niche, everybody has strengths. If you focus on that, you're well on your way.
That's really good advice, actually, Evan. Yeah, I just have one advice that I've just learned recently from experience. And my advice to podcasters or anybody involved in any kind of creative project, don't be afraid to give up on the project if you think it's not going to work out. It's not going to be a slur on you. It's not going to be something you're going to be embarrassed about. It happened with me. We were doing a podcast project on Greenland. We were interviewing women from Greenland. I got the interviews organized. We did the interviews. I listened back to the interviews and I didn't think they were good enough. And I said, this is not what I envisaged the project being. And I just gave up on it there and then. I said, no, I'll go back to maybe in 2 or 3 years' time. Had a team working with me and I told the team, this is not working. And they all kind of, in the back of their mind, they weren't happy with the results so far. And I think it was better rather than being kind of cocky and saying, well, I'm going to go to the end. And, we got some dodgy emails from the guests who weren't very happy. But I explained to them that this happens in media across the world. Lots of projects, in media, whether it be documentaries or, well-funded podcasts done by the majors. It does happen. So my advice to young people and to people starting out in podcasting is don't be afraid to quit on a project if it's not going the way you want it to be. Just that's just like what we were talking about, guys, earlier on about having different ideas and different concepts running at the same time. Always have 2 or 3 projects in your mind, because if one of them fails, you still have the guts out to go on and do the next one. But don't be afraid to fail.
Ken, for every big Hollywood hit movie that we see an actor make, they make like 4 or 5 bombs that never get released.
Yeah.
And you always hear them so people don't realize that there's tons of bombs that don't even make it.
Look at Batwoman. Batwoman was the perfect example recently. Did the movie, ready to go. Don't like that, pull it. Yeah, All
right, so I'm going to give my little, it's not really advice, it's just an idea. But before I do, let's do plugs real quick. Ken, tell us.
Comfortable spot. Lydia's Booktastic podcast. They're my podcasts. Go for it.
Yeah, and so we'll put this stuff in the show notes.
Sure. Thanks, Chris.
After. Yeah. Ever?
Yeah, go to outlierhq.com, outlierhq.com. You can find information about all of our festivals. Sign up for our newsletter. We send out information every week. We kind of highlight different indie podcasters and just kind of interesting news. So outlierhq.com.
Are you using Substack?
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been doing that for a little over a year now.
How's that going for you?
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm always going to find different things that I like on different platforms, but Substack, for the most part, it's been the best so far for what I'm doing.
Cool. Yeah, I started one, but I didn't even promote it because I just kind of wanted to start it and try it, and it's pretty interesting.
You like it?
It's interesting. So the one thing with these newer platforms, they operate differently. So like sometimes it takes my mind a little bit to like, I mean, I know what it's doing like concretely, but in terms of how I'm going to use it and how it can help, like sometimes I don't get it right away. And
it doesn't have all the bells and whistles for the most part, just because it's geared more towards writers, it feels like.
Yeah.
But you know,
a lot of my friend journalists use them. Yeah, a lot of journalists in Europe. It's very popular in Europe with journalists who are freelancers. That's a really big thing for them. It's definitely potential for podcasters. All right, as well. I haven't looked at it, so I'll check it out.
All right, Chris Krimitsos.
Just subscribe to our newsletter, podfestmessenger.com, or you could go to Podfest Expo. But right now we're retooling the site since we just finished Global. But podfestmessenger.com, we send our newsletter twice a week. And we use a tool that's like Substack, but it's meant for newsletters. It's called Beehive. It's excellent.
I heard of that. You like it?
We love it. We've been using it. We were one of the beta launch. It has all the capabilities that you need for promotions. So it's our secret little weapon, but now we're promoting it.
And like just for an average person like me, if I wanted to use it, is it something I have to pay for, or is it free?
It's like $99 a month, but we have 3 different newsletters for other things that we do. We have thousands of contacts on there. It's great.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, most of you know I have run podcast engineering school. I teach people how to become a professional podcast producer and earn a great living from home producing podcasts for other people. And here's my thought on, if I can remember it. what was we were my idea, because I love doing this. I think I might have mentioned it last week. When I record a podcast episode for one of my episodes, I like doing it as if it's live. Like I just, from start to finish, I want to do it all in one shot as if it's live, because it's me, it's my heart. I'm putting my heart into it. And I want to get good enough where I don't have to edit at all. That's my ultimate goal. And by doing it as if it's live, you get good, because not every little flub has to be edited out. Sometimes you can make a joke about a flub and just keep moving on. And what it for me, what it does is it helps me build up not only the skill of being able to just do it, but also the confidence, right? To come on here on a live stream and I could just talk and I don't even know what I'm going to say half the time. So anyway, I think that is an interesting.
And some people like the flubs, by the way, right? It's a real conversation. It's authentic. We've experienced, we have 500 plus episodes on our show, but in the beginning we were editing all the ums and different things like that. And people can kind of hear still, no matter how good your editing is, they can still tell a lot of times when there was a cut. And every time I hear it, like on a podcast that I like or listen to, I want what's in between, because sometimes that's fun and off the show a little bit, but it still feels real and authentic. And I think people enjoy that. So yeah, I just like you, I leave it in.
I agree. I had a show where a long time ago it was about conferences. I was interviewing other conference organizers, and her dog started barking. And she apologized because she's a podcaster. So like podcasters take it like a badge of, I'm so sorry. I go, it's okay. She goes, you could cut it. I go, I'm leaving it in. I go, what's your dog's name, by the way? And the dog's name was Meatball. So it was like really funny because it was like an English bulldog. So anyways, I forgot we did the show. And like Ever said, the content was great. It was just that one thing. We left it in. And I never get, like, this was a very niche show. Someone sends me an email like that was really funny about Meatball. Like nice. That's what they remember of the show. So I always remember that. I never got an email about anything but Meatball. I still remember. So one time it's like, oh, we're leaving it in because I'm not going to edit this.
Can I just say one more thing? Actually, and it's probably a little bit of advice that we just learned from experience. It happens a lot in Europe when you're interviewing people whose English isn't their first language, or whatever language you're interviewing in, and they're trying to speak your language. We find that when it comes to the editing is that we do have to edit, because what happens is if you go past 10 or 15 minutes in a podcast with a guest whose English, for example, is not their first language, they get brain tired. And you can actually see it, it begins to happen. You can actually visually see it on your system where you're editing. So what we try and do is we either try and recognize that fact and end the episode for their sake, or if they want to go on, we do have to edit, because they start really drawing out their words and taking longer pauses to think. And sometimes that can have fluidic effect on the podcast. You can actually orally hear it slowing down,
Sure.
which can put people off listening to it. So we find that is an issue. And I guess a little bit of advice as well is to, if you are interviewing somebody who in your language and they're speaking in your language and it's not their first language, please bear that in mind for the sake of the guest. Keep the episode within their timeline. And if you have to go over it, take into account that they are going to slur their words or they're going to take time to think of another word. So.
All right, well, we're supposed to end in 11 seconds, but we can go a little bit over. I want to thank everybody. Thank you to Daniel Hager. Thank you, Liberty Dude. Thank you, Eileen Smith, Eric Hunley. We're going to, right now, after this show, we're immediately going to go to America's Untold Stories. You can watch them on YouTube, Rumble, or Locals, actually. But YouTube and Rumble. And here's Michael, the sound guy. Michael, the sound guy with the Location Sound podcast. He's in Orlando. Chris Krimitsos, Michael Helms.
I got to call Michael. Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a while.
Yeah, Michael Helms. All right, well, thanks everybody for watching. Maybe one of these lounges, we'll talk about how we can grow the lounge. So anyway, we're out. Peace out.
Bye, CC. Bye, boys.
Good. Yeah.
Bye, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Chris. I'm going to fly. Take care of yourself, okay?
All right, we're out. Thanks, Ken. Great job, man. Oh, and by the way, next week I'm on earlier with Steve and a few other people, so maybe you and I can connect after that. We'll look further. Okay.
No worries. Take care of yourself,
Thanks,
mate.
brother.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah,
See ya.
Great job, man. Thanks.
Bye.
StreamYard is not my internet connection must be weak or something. StreamYard is not ending the stream. It's not ending. I keep clicking end. All right, I'm just going to close the browser. All right, I don't know if it'll keep going, but we'll see you guys. I don't know if you're here or anyone's here, but all right.